Well, hello everyone. I'm Rachel Winchester. You can just call me Win. It's what everyone calls me. I'm gonna start sharing my screen. And I just need to make sure the Zoom panel is out of my way. 1 second. All right, great. So everyone can let me know if you can't hear me or you can't see my my screen. Great. So hello everyone, my name is Rachel Winchester. I am an organizer for the Jersey Press meetup group. I've been an organizer for maybe half a year now. I'm also an organizer for the Philly meetup group for about as long, maybe a little bit, not as long. But I've been in the WordPress ecosystem, in the WordPress world for maybe 4 years now. And I am a product designer. I've been a product designer for about a year and a half or 2 years. So yeah, I'm presenting the case for Elementor, working solo as a product designer. And through this presentation, I'm going to be using my personal portfolio site, which I built with Elementor. So I'll give you a quick look of what that is. It's at visualwebmaster.com. So I'll be taking you through how I designed this, and also a bit about me and why I designed the site the way I did, and how I designed and why I designed all of my sites the way that I do. Yep, you can learn a little bit more about me if you want to scroll through my website. The interesting thing, the cool thing about my site, well, about a lot of sites that you can build with Elementor is that not everything needs to look the same. So on these two main pages for the portfolio and about, I have this large header section, and then I'll scroll fast to the bottom and show you the footer. But actually on the case study pages, I have a bit of a different design because they're very different pages. So I gave it a different header and kind of a different feel for that. Let me go back to my presentation, and I'll explain a lot more about everything you're looking at as we move along. So I titled this presentation The Case for Elementor because it is a case study. I am in no way telling you that this is the perfect way or the only way to build a site. This is just how I build them. And I feel like a lot of people can learn from my story and my process, which is why I made this presentation, and kind of just as an explanation. However, it is just a case study. I am not in any way promoting Elementor. I'm not telling you to go out and buy Elementor Pro. And Elementor or WordPress, no one's paying me to talk about these products. This is just completely organic. So first third, I'll talk about my past and how I came to use Elementor. Then I'll talk about how I use it currently for my freelance practice and building websites specifically. And then in the future, how I plan to keep using Elementor, knowing that full site editing is on the horizon, and a bunch of other developments. But I'm actually gonna take, I think I'll take questions after the second section, just because in the second section I have a lot of demos, and you might have more questions about that. And then the third section is pretty quick, so I can just fill up whatever time we have left in the third section. Yeah, leave your questions in the Q&A section. All right, so WordPress, how it all started 4 years ago. I just had an idea for a website, and I had extra time on my hands, and I had a bunch of graduation money. So I just built a website, used some premium services and premium hosting to just kind of play around with this idea. Just as a hobby. I then had some other ideas for other websites, and I just built them just as a hobby, testing out different themes. So I guess the way that most people start building websites, the way WordPress kind of directs you to do that, is to look through their library of themes and find the one that's right for your content and right for what you're trying to do. So that's what I started with. Themes use code. They're made in code, HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. maybe some other codes. CSS is really the part that I would try to edit a lot. Back when I was using themes, I would try to edit the CSS especially, to try and tweak things to get them to look how I wanted them to look. So I ended up in some ways learning a lot of CSS trying to do this stuff, but it was very time consuming. And I found a better option, page builders. So after trying themes, I looked around for a better way to build sites. And I also think at this point I was starting to go to WordPress meetups, and I, opened my eyes to all the possibilities in the WordPress world. So I heard about this page builder called Brizzy, and there was a free trial. So I downloaded that and tried that for a website. It was just a one-page website, so I didn't need to like upgrade to any premium plan. But it worked all right for that site. However, I did think it was a little glitchy. So when the next site came along, I tried a different page builder, and I settled on Elementor because that also had a free trial. So I was just going through all the free trials. Again, at this point, I'm not monetizing my sites. I'm not selling anything. I'm just really just playing around as a hobbyist and enthusiast, just really just kind of falling in love with the internet and website building. So yes, using Elementor. It is, what is it? It's a page builder that allows for full site editing. It allows you to completely customize your entire site without using code. And it allows for full site editing, which means you can edit the header, the footer, you can create global components, you can edit the archive pages and the search results pages, every part of the site. And there is a premium version. So what you do need to understand is that the full site editing comes with the premium version. I'll take you to the Elementor website just to show you how that their pricing for their product. It's on this page here. What's interesting actually is Elementor restructured their pricing plans this year, quite recently. And I am now on a legacy plan. So I am not actually paying the rates for the number of sites. I have a really awesome deal. But I do still think that it is very reasonably priced. If you have one pro website for just $50 a year, that's a trip to the grocery store. But I think I have maybe like 1,000 sites for like 100 or maybe 200 a year. It's something ridiculous, but I'm very happy that I'm on this legacy plan. Yeah, and the way the pro version works is when you upgrade to put a paid plan, you then have a license key and you just add that license into the WordPress dashboard to verify it. Okay. Let me go back to the presentation. So building a website with Elementor, you are given elements or widgets, and you also have a bunch of pre-made templates that you can choose from, made by their professional designers. You can also create your own templates to reuse around sites and around other sites. So you can export templates that you created to use around other sites, which is pretty awesome. I actually do that with like cookie notice pop-ups and things like that. And then you can create global components. You can create global widgets, global templates, things that you can change in one place, and that change will appear everywhere on the site. I just love the web creation experience that comes with Elementor. So I'll show you the back end of my site to show you Elementor a bit. So the fastest way to get to the Elementor editor is to, when you're logged into WordPress, just click right up here and edit with Elementor. You could also go to the dashboard and go to your pages and click, edit Elementor next to the page. But I'm actually going to start in the dashboard just so you can see how to add Elementor to your site. All right. It's a plugin. You start with a plugin. The Elementor basic plan right here is a plugin. You just download it like you download any other plugin and activate it. If you decide to upgrade to Pro, you first have to get that file from your account and upload the zip file to your site. What you see here is, you can see that there's a new version of Elementor available. There was an update just a few weeks ago, so I feel like this is a little unnecessary, but I'll look into what the update is. Since Elementor is such a large plugin and it does affect all of your site, I always update it in a staging site, or at least create a backup. And then you have to update Elementor before updating Elementor Pro. I once did it the opposite way, and the site went down for a bit. A couple other things you'll see here. I've got 2 plugins that go with Elementor. Elementor is a very popular plugin, and people have created other plugins to go with it to expand its possibilities and capabilities. These 2, I think, just give me extra widgets. And I'll show you what a widget is now. So let me go back to my site to show you the editor. Click right up here.
I don't know what happened there, but we're still recording.
All right. All right. This is the back end. Well, there's a lot of things to explain. First, the left sidebar is the Elementor sidebar, and that's where everything takes place. Most of the capabilities, practically all of the capabilities that you see inside of the WordPress editor, when you click on this edit page button, pretty much everything that you see on this side with the title and everything in this page sidebar, you could also edit in the Elementor sidebar. So I rarely look at this screen in the WordPress dashboard because nearly everything, and even the SEO, is edited in Elementor. So it keeps everything in one place, and it's wonderful like that. I'll explain the sidebar first. So what you're looking at here are the widgets, sometimes called elements, but widgets, and we're in the screen right here. The widgets, they're drag and drop editors. So let's say I wanted to add a little text to another header to this section or something. I can just drag and drop it and edit the text right there. I can style it here and even add maybe some CSS right here if I wanted to. So I can customize widgets to that level. I'm gonna delete it. The other thing with this sidebar here at the very top, we're looking at the widgets right now, so that we can edit this specific screen that I'm looking at. However, this button over here gives me full site options and even the option to go back to the dashboard. So I'm just going to show you this really quickly before going back to the page. The site settings is where you edit the full site, pretty much the style guide. This is where I define the typography, the button styles, how I want my images to appear, all the colors, even the breakpoints for like mobile responsiveness. Everything's kind of just all in this one. So even though I clicked to edit this page, I can edit the whole site from the same window without even having to refresh the page or go to a different page. But yeah, I'm going to go back to editing this page. All right, so I'll go down, just vertically going down in the sidebar, just explain these 2 things. Now I'm going to explain these 3. So the elements are the drag and drop things that I showed before. If I wanted to, I could create an element, save it, and use it as a global element. I actually don't have global elements, global widgets on this site because I built this site not knowing that that was an option, or maybe it wasn't an option, maybe it was a recent update. But this site I designed a year ago, and I don't think this was an option, or if it was, I wasn't aware. But what this essentially means is, let's say I have a button styled this way, not styled like all of my other buttons, but a separate button style. And I want the same button else everywhere around the site. but I don't want to use the regular button style, so I can create a global widget to create another button style. And I can edit that style in one place and the changes will be universal. This third tab that you see here is for SEO. It's actually the Rank Math SEO plugin that's working inside Elementor. So Rank Math and Yoast, I know are two very popular SEO plugins. I think Yoast actually works the same way in that if you download it to an Elementor site, it'll create its own SEO tab right here, which is very useful. As you see, I need to work on the SEO on this page, but it's great that everything is again in one screen, all in the Elementor editor. All right, going back here. All right, so I already explained the widgets. You just drag them, drop them, and you edit them. There are so many different types of widgets. These are the widgets you get in the free version. These are the ones you get in the pro version. General, I don't know why that's general. And then there are the premium add-ons that I showed you how I added that extra plugin for even more widgets, and the essential add-ons for even more widgets. I'm not even sure how many of those I'm using. And then this bottom part of the WordPress Elementor sidebar, more options. So I can do the settings for the page, rename the title, put it into draft, change the layout. I can open this navigator bar, which is very useful. Sometimes I create elements that can like overlap other elements. And when that happens, it's sometimes hard to click and focus on a certain element. So this navigator helps me find those two things. Help me drag it into the structure of the site, even if I can't drag it directly onto the page. The history here is a great tab. Not only will it keep track of any actions that I made within this session, but it'll also keep track of past revisions for this page, all the way 4 months, 5 months, 6 months ago. This is a very fabulous tool. And then this button right here is also amazing. Turns it into the responsive mode. Again, everything in one screen. You can go straight. They also recently redesigned this responsive mode to make it like this. Before they just had the tablet, desktop, and mobile option. Now they have it completely responsive option, which is pretty cool. Maybe I should tweak my design a little bit to do that, but yep. All right, and then the preview changes. I actually rarely use the preview because inside the editor, it is very accurate to what will appear live. When I have the sidebar open, I'm in the editor view and I can see these blue and yellow tabs open saying that click here to edit. But when I close the Elementor sidebar, those things pop out and I'm in the preview version of the site. Again, everything in one view, everything in one tool. I love that option. Right. So now I'm going to move from the sidebar and show you and explain a little bit about what you're actually looking at and why my screen looks different from what you were looking at on the live site. Yeah, so this top section is my header. I'm currently editing the page, not the header. But if I wanted to edit the header, I can just click that. Let's see, I didn't really make any changes, but if I did, I don't want to save them. And here is my header. I just went from editing the page to editing the header in one click. All right, well, now why does it look so funky? Well, it's because I have two headers, actually, one for desktop and one for mobile. And the way I do that is, so this desktop section, the section you see is visible on desktop and it's designed for desktop. Okay. And I did that by creating it for desktop, in this section where it says responsive, I just clicked to hide on mobile. And then I made another section with the same information formatted a different way, where it's the opposite. It's shown on mobile and hidden on desktop and tablet. So now I'll go back to the responsive mode so you can see how one disappears. Yeah, you can see there's one stacked on top of each other, but if I were to go into the preview mode, I would see exactly what I would see on live. There we go. So I just love the convenience of how everything, literally everything, is in one window. And that's how that works. So back to my presentation. So the other popular way of building websites that many people use is Gutenberg. It's similar. Well, not too similar to Elementor because you are still in the WordPress dashboard mostly, but you do have that, like, what you see is what you get kind of view in the block editor for those pages. Gutenberg, is just the block editor. It doesn't have full site editing yet, but as we've all been talking about how full site editing is coming native to WordPress, that's going to be a really interesting option in the future. But I'll talk about that more towards the end of my presentation. But anyway, Elementor compared to Gutenberg, it's user-friendly, not as user-friendly. Well, I shouldn't say it's not user-friendly. It's two different interfaces. So once you get used to one interface versus the other, it's user-friendly. But Gutenberg lacks full site editing, which Elementor does provide, and you still need a theme to make up for the rest of the site that you can't edit with Gutenberg, such as the header and the footer and things like that. Other page builders that compete with Elementor, two really popular ones are Divi and Beaver Builder. There's a whole bunch more out there. I find, or at least, so I haven't used Divi or Beaver Builder to build a site, but talking with people who have, they are the same. They might have different features, they might have different prices, maybe a different look to their interface, but it's the same feel, the same full site page builder experience. So here to the left, this left image, you see the Divi page builder. An interesting thing with Divi, at least the pro version, is you get A/B testing. It's a very valuable tool for marketers. And then Beaver Builder, I think Beaver Builder is, their interface is maybe the best because you can completely kind of collapse. It's like their sidebar opens only when you click on a widget. So it's definitely a different interface. Okay, other page builders outside of the WordPress world are very popular, especially with the people trying to build sites without code. Squarespace is a big name. Wix is a big name. It's also Weebly and Google sites, I think. These page builders, though, aren't just page builders. They're really all-in-one packages. They offer, Squarespace and Wix, they offer their own, hosting, domains, and CMS packages because they're completely outside of the WordPress world. I don't believe you can do a Wix page builder in a WordPress site. That's not a thing. So it's if you're going for these products, you are essentially saying you don't want WordPress. But I find WordPress has so many possibilities that you really benefit by using a page builder in the WordPress ecosystem. And also these kind of all-in-one options tend to lack developer tools, which sometimes has an impact on like SEO and accessibility. But they are just different. They're just different products. They're different products. They have their own method of building a site that I can't really say that it's better or worse than Elementor. It's just different. they have so much emphasis on templates. See, let us help match you with the best website templates. I always know when I'm looking at a Squarespace site because it's a template I've seen a dozen times before. Right. So moving into the present, how I build sites now with all of this, all of these clients that I'm actually working with. So I am a product designer, which means that I am focused on 3 different things: user experience design, business strategy, and technology. So what is user experience design? If you haven't heard that term before, it is a user-centered approach to design. It doesn't necessarily mean websites or apps. It just means it's a design method. You're putting the user first and their experience first. You research and identify the user and their problem. You figure out how to solve that problem, and then you test your solution to make sure you've solved their problem. So that's what UX design is, and that's about 1/3 of what I do. UX design, this is new to you. It is best practice when it comes to designing websites, because when you put the user first, you make a usable website. So usability is great. It also results, I find, in optimized sites for search and more accessible sites. I just think of, with SEO, I tend to think of, a robot, like Google's robots that go around and look for tags and metadata, as like another type of user. And then accessibility, you can't just design for users with all the users like yourself. You got to keep all types of users in mind, all different accessibility needs. So the way that I work solo building Elementor sites is that I don't really think of myself as working solo. I am always asking people for help, messaging people, seeing if they could meet with me and let me pick their brain, or getting a second pair of eyes on a design, anything like that. So I use consultants. I'm in a lot of different communities and Slack groups, and I just try to be resourceful in any way that I can. Design just can't be done solo. That's, I think, just in the definition of design. And this is probably one of my favorite quotes about the topic: indifference towards people and the reality in which they live is the one and only cardinal sin in design. Dieter Rams, he's the brain behind Braun, and had a huge impact on like minimal tech aesthetic, like Apple. Think of Apple. All right, so before moving to Elementor, you have a lot of work to do. Elementor should be your very last step. It's my last step, and I learned a lot from building sites starting with Elementor. So yeah, Elementor is last. You want to start with a sketch, build a wireframe. I'll show you what a wireframe looks like in a bit. The wireframes help map content and make sure you account for all the content that needs to go into a site. Style guide is you define the style in one place and you use that as a guide to help you develop the style moving forward in a website. And mockups are like pixel perfect, I call them website simulations. They're like pixel perfect images of what your site will look like before it's built, I should say. So this is an example of what a wireframe looks like. Wireframes are low fidelity, and I'm showing you the mobile wireframes because mobile first design is best practice, because most people view websites, especially for the first time, on mobile. You want that experience, you kind of want to prioritize that experience. And then knowing that that screen is so much smaller, it's harder to design for it. So if you design for mobile first and then adapt the design for desktop, things just work out so much better. Other things to do, these are the tools that I like to use before moving to Elementor. Balsamic is the tool that I use to make the wireframe that you just saw. Miro is great for sketching and as well as like flows and project management as well. And then Figma and Adobe are great graphic design tools. I'll show you just a peek at what Figma is. It's pretty new. It is essentially Illustrator or Sketch or Adobe in the browser. And here, so I've actually built this whole presentation in Figma using a style guide that I created with components. So let's say I didn't want my logo to appear in the corner of every slide. I can just hide it and then it'll disappear from my presentation component. So yeah, if you haven't discovered Figma yet, it is a great software. I'm still only using the free version. So wonderful software, right? Other things to think about before moving to Elementor is, any graphic design that you need to do, any animations that you want to add. Elementor gives you a lot of possibilities for animations, so trying to think that through before moving to Elementor prevents that when you have too many options and you don't know what to choose. It's good to think about that beforehand. And then of course, any other assets, photography, audio, video. A high fidelity mockup, kind of like what you're looking at now, like a pixel perfect preview of what your site will look like. It is a lot of work to do those. I tend to only make mockups when a client wants them. Or usually I just make mockups for clients. I don't usually make mockups for, if I'm just making a site as a hobby, because it'll just be too much extra time. But it is a pretty important step when working with a client, because they want to see and approve the design before you spend all your time building it. Because it's harder to change something after you build it than while you're designing it. Here are some websites that I use that I've been relying on pretty heavily for all of this knowledge that I've accumulated. First, the Elementor website, they have so much information. They have a blog, they have connections to their own meetups with a lot more information. They have a Facebook group with a whole lot of people in it, and they're always, let's see, I think there were, oh yeah, the last time I checked the Elementor community on Facebook, it was only 100,000 members. So it's grown quite a bit. But yes, it is a huge and a very healthy community. Always full of people willing to help out. And then this last link right here is, he is a YouTuber. He's kind of very similar to myself. He's kind of a graphic designer who makes websites with Elementor. But he has a lot of great suggestions and courses on his site, although I mostly stay on his YouTube channel. But yeah, there's a lot of great people like that out there that you can learn from. Right, so I said I would take questions after the second part.
There is one question in the Q&A. I could read it off to you. It's from Kevin. He asks, with Gutenberg, why won't all external WordPress page builders eventually become obsolete or defunct?
Hey, that's what I'm going to talk about in the future.
Should we just wait for you to talk about it?
Yeah.
Okay, Kevin. So your question is going to be covered in the next
you read my mind.
part. I'm going to say that this is going to be answered live. And Kevin, if you have a follow-up question when does explain it, please do not hesitate to put a follow-up in the Q&A. So if anybody else has any questions, add it to the Q&A and we'll get to it toward the end when we're ready to answer some more questions.
Yeah, and I'll be hanging out. I can stay around till 9. So if people want to afterwards, you know, if you want me to show you, you know, some more technical stuff in the back end of, you know, Elementor, I can go back and do that. So I'll just move on to the future. So how I plan to keep using Elementor, knowing all the stuff that's on the horizon. Well, first of all, there's a lot more stuff that I have to build with Elementor. A lot of things that I haven't even touched, like custom widgets. I could build my own widgets if I wanted to. This is different from the global widgets that I already explained. Can try custom animations, WooCommerce. What's interesting is I'm actually currently building an e-commerce store with Elementor, but I'm using Shopify, not WooCommerce. So I'll let you guys know when that's published. I'm using this plugin called WP Shopify to connect the Shopify POS point of sales to the WordPress site. It's going very well. But yeah, the future of Elementor, competition's closing in. Yeah, WordPress full site editing is competition, but it's not competition now. So there are so many sites out there built with Elementor. There's no reason for those sites to be transferred over to full site editing. So Elementor is going to stay live while those sites stay live. The other thing is that even when full site editing is here, it's going to have to go through some iterations until it's going to have to be tested. It may not be the best idea to, you know, just go head in. I'm used to building with Elementor and I know it very well. So I'm probably just gonna stick with that until WordPress full site editing is somewhat flawless.
Yeah, I actually agree with Rachel. I think that the page builders still kind of have an advantage on Gutenberg. Mm-hmm. There's dozens and dozens of things I can do with page builders and the add-ons sets that I can do very easily that I can't yet do or can't do easily with Gutenberg and the block systems. They're just not quite on par yet.
And I think that WordPress, whoever's designing the full site editing, whoever's the product designer for that, they're probably studying Elementor and Divi and Page Builder and taking the best of all of those page builders and hopefully combining them. So I am looking forward to transitioning into full site editing in the future. It's just, there's no reason for me to rush into it. And then
you also say the tools that you're used to, that there are people that are used to tools that don't want to change to different tools, I would think as well. So
exactly,
people are already used to Elementor, Divi, and even when the Gutenberg tools are up to par with them, they might still prefer the other tools to them. So
yeah, exactly. There's also some talk. Maybe this talk has died down, but there's some talk of Elementor turning into an all-in-one similar to Squarespace. But I think that talk died down. I think Elementor stated that they, you know, don't want to leave the WordPress world. We'll see in the future. Other things in the future for me outside of WordPress or with WordPress is I stumbled upon Elementor as a no-code solution. However, as a product designer, it really does benefit me to learn a lot more code. So I'm learning JavaScript currently, and I'm looking to use JavaScript to do more with Elementor, and also help with other things as a product designer. So like the developer handoff helps. It's if I understand what a developer does, I can design better, and that handoff would be more flawless. There's also this title called UX engineer or UX engineering. UX engineers are different from UX designers in that they are essentially also front-end developers. So they do the whole UX design process and then they build their designs completely. Yep, I'm settled on being a career product designer, looking to gain experience in UX design and business and technology, which is a lot to keep on my plate. Made this word cloud to visually look at all the stuff that I try to stay on top of.
Is UX engineer in your future?
No, product design is my future.
So you're not going to go that deep into it.
Well,
It's a lot.
actually,
It's
we'll
a lot
see.
to do.
We'll see. You know, maybe.
You might like it. If you're doing JavaScript now, you might be like,
Yeah, I do like it. I mean, I already like it. The thing is, I also really, really like business. Like finance. I love finance, actually. So it's there's just a lot of things that I love and I like to get more involved in. So who knows how much of a developer I'll become. Yeah, lots of stuff to do with product design, working with developers and engineers, working on other products and other platforms outside of websites and outside of WordPress. There's so many possibilities. But for the foreseeable future, I'm going to be continuing with Elementor to build sites solo because it's my favorite method. I love just spending all day in the Elementor editor, just building sites. And I can build them very quickly at this point. And I can offer websites to clients at a lower price point, knowing that they don't have to pay for a developer. Thanks for listening.
You're trying to put me out of business. Okay. Do you saying working solo, do you ever you mentioned in your talk that you do like, touch base with people, like, use some people as like sounding boards and just for advice. Do you ever bring others onto projects with you, like either another like a front end or back end developer, or someone that kind of I guess handles a skill that that is outside your toolbox, or just someone that might be a better fit for that specific thing, so you could focus on other things? Do you ever do that with your projects?
Yeah, to some extent. So I haven't like co-designed. I haven't collaborated with another designer, but I have collaborated with graphic designers and artists who are better at creating those graphic elements. I don't really think of myself as an artist. I just use the design softwares to design. But like I've collaborated with digital artists and illustrators to kind of get more prettier elements to add to my websites. Also, I've collaborated, I don't know if we call it collaboration. I've used accessibility consultants on a couple of my sites. He's actually a great guy to have in my pocket because he can suggest even more clients who have inaccessible sites that need to be redesigned.
Nice.
And then a couple times I've tried to collaborate with developers. I'm trying to think. I've been able to, I guess, find workarounds with Elementor so far that I haven't had to collaborate with developers. However, I do ask them a lot of questions often. I'll often go to edit the HTML and CSS and the header and footer scripts and to just do things with my sites that I couldn't do with Elementor. So I'll ask them questions, take their advice, but as far as like working on a site together yet, not yet.
When you mentioned using JavaScript, is that like, are there areas in Elementor where like using JavaScript can extend it to like some like APIs or something, to kind of almost like an add-on, but more, I guess, a custom thing? Is that kind of where you were going with that piece with learning JavaScript and applying it to Elementor? Or is it just learning JavaScript in general?
I am just learning JavaScript in general.
Okay.
Plus, for a couple contracts that I'm going to do in the future, it helps for me to know JavaScript, especially React, actually. But that's just that specific job.
React is super fun.
Oh, I'm excited now. Yeah. I'm excited. But yeah, if I mean, I guess I don't know enough about JavaScript to figure out how to use it with Elementor yet.
That'd be interesting. Cool. Tinu has a question, and I know Tinu from PMC. So thank you, Tinu, for joining us tonight. PMC is who is my employer. Anyway, Tinu asks, very curious about design CSS of your portfolio site. Did you use CSS Grid? How would you describe the process of working with Elementor to create unique or complex layouts?
So with the grid, are you saying the grid because I have like all these lines everywhere, or are you specifically saying, is it like tables?
Tinu, you can just answer that in the chat if you like.
I'll show you with let me get back into the page, editing the page instead of the header. I just added borders to columns and sections. So I didn't have to like import any. Yeah, so let's zoom into.
Does Elementor come with some default CSS for styling? So it's the what you see is what you get. So it has like a grid system baked into it. Is that, I think that may be, and Tina, correct me if I'm wrong, if I'm putting words in your mouth.
Yeah, I can show you this section. So in this one section for the Arts Razor case study, there's 2 columns. This column for the sideways text and this column for the main text. So in this column, I'm going to click to focus it on the column. When I go over to style, you can see in the border, I actually just add a 1 pixel border to the top and the left. Top and left. And then to this column, I did the same thing. I added a 1 pixel border in this background to top, left, and right to close the box. So yeah, that's kind of how I did it. I created these borders around the columns. Once I got everything correct, I just duplicated, copy pasted all the sections.
Cool. Excellent. We have another question from Gary. As I joined late, forgive me if you already addressed this. Did you consider Divi instead of Elementor? And if so, why Elementor over Divi? Or as Cameron would say, why not Beaver Builder? Or why not?
I started with Elementor because there was a free version. And I built a site with the free version and I liked the editor. So I just ended upgrading to Pro. I think Divi is the one that doesn't have a free trial or a free version, if I'm not mistaken. They may have you, just pay to use it. So I probably wouldn't have used that because I started using Elementor back when I was just building sites as a hobby. So I wasn't looking to.
Have you used any of the other page builders?
I was just going to say, I believe Divi does have a free version.
It does? Okay.
Yeah.
When have you used other page builders to kind of see a compare and contrast to Elementor, or are you just like Elementor is just kind of what you used, you liked it, no reason to check out another one sort of thing, which is
Yeah, I just found Elementor and stuck with it.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of what would make me move or at least try out a different.
Probably if you got a client that used another one, you'd have to.
Yeah. If I had a client that really wanted to work with me and they already had a site in Divi, it would make. And if it was just a slight redesign, then yes, I would keep it in Divi.
I don't know if the other page builders have this function, but I do a lot of stuff in multi-site. So there's often the case where I need to share template parts between like child sites. And so in Beaver Builder, I have the ability of using a shortcode that allows me to pull like a saved template part from the parent site and display it across all subsites. It's really, really cool. I don't know if Elementor or any of the other page builders have that, but it's a core fundamental
add-on for that.
What I'm building. Maybe.
I can see that not being in a core sort of plugin because multi-site is such a not used very often, and you really have to ask yourself if multi-site is the right thing to do, and most of the time it's not. But I could totally see that as an add-on for any of these things and not part of the core plugin. But that's
Like
curious if they have it.
yeah, I was gonna say most of these sites have, or most of these plugins have like the concept of like what Win is showing now, like the global settings, you know, like the header and the footer and whatever other components you want. Like if you want like a little contact form, you can make that as a global component and you just kind of put it on whatever pages you want. I know with Divi specifically, I know they have a plugin called like Divi Cloud, or like, you know, some company has come up with some plugin called Divi Cloud, where you can store those components on the cloud. And so in that case, Cam, you might be able to share it across child themes, you know, but like, yeah, like with your use case, you know, if Beaver Builder has it built in, you know, that's definitely a selling point for Beaver Builder. And I mean, like to Rachel's point, it's like you try something and you're like, this is pretty good and I really like it. And if you get really good at it, you can use it to make your living with it, you know. And it's like it you know, Elementor is it's obviously full featured as a company, you know, they've raised a ton of money you know, for that stuff. You know, and Divi is comparable to Elementor. You know, obviously it has like a little bit of a different layout and you have to go to different places to do the similar things, you know, but you know, and I think Beaver Builder is along the same lines, you know, where it's just like you can do the same stuff, you just have to click in different places, you know. And it's like, you know, like it's everybody kind of has their favorites, you know.
Yeah.
Like I like Divi, Cam likes Beaver Builder, Win likes Elementor, Mike likes writing his own code from scratch constantly. No.
I only write it once.
Yeah, that's very true.
William has a question. Win, what are your thoughts on combining the Astra theme with Elementor? I'm not sure if you're familiar with the Astra theme. But
I think I stumbled upon Astra back when I was still playing around with themes. Astra, is that a premium theme that you you know, pay for, all that stuff?
William, if you want to follow up with whether that is a premium or a free
I
theme.
think it is. I always get confused between Astra and Avada, which is like the other popular one. But so, I mean, I guess the other question could be just like, can you integrate?
Astra has so I guess that it's a
okay, like, can you integrate Elementor with general themes? Like, can you use 2017 and put on Elementor elements on it?
Yeah, so when you're building an Elementor site and you know that you want every page, every element to be with Elementor, it's recommended to use the Elementor, Hello Elementor theme because it's incredibly minimal. However, you can use Elementor with themes. Like let's say I just wanted to add a new page, which would open up normally in the Gutenberg editor. And I can publish this page and it'll look like, it'll use the Hello Elementor theme, but it'll be in the Gutenberg block editor, and I can, you know, edit it the way you normally do. Yeah. Or I can choose to click this button and activate Elementor on this page.
I just popped open my Astra account and I can see that they actually have an Astra theme for Elementor. So it looks like they have
Williams
in mind.
He says they do have an Astra Pro as well, and it integrates well with Elementor. So, cool. That's good to know.
Yeah, I think Jason was saying there is a page builder cloud service, which is kind of cool, which allows you to like save your page builder templates like in the cloud, which then pull them down from between different websites. It's kind of, I haven't used it yet, but it sounds really useful.
Paul has a question. When you build design, are you taking into consideration the speed of the site and upload speeds? So I think this is mostly a speed question because I know that sometimes page builders notoriously can be a little heavy. How does Elementor like stack up against other page builders as far as speed and stuff that makes up the content?
Well, I don't know if Elementor compared to other page builders is faster or slower, but I do know that Elementor is a huge plugin. So if you put it on a site, just, you know, try and, I'm pretty stingy with the plugins because I know Elementor already does a lot. So I try to only add whatever else I absolutely need. And then the other thing is I use premium WordPress managed hosting. I really think that's the thing that does it, that keeps the site going fast. One time I built a site for a client who already had I think GoDaddy hosting. It was WordPress managed, but it was GoDaddy, and it wasn't too great. Their site is still a little glitchy and a little slow.
Yeah, it's the whole you get what you pay for thing. A lot of the better hosting have better caching strategies and such to you know, make things faster. You know, file concatenation, maybe some lazy loading, stuff like that usually helps.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't know much about hosting when I started. So someone talked, I think it was actually like regular WordPress support, just directed me to Pressable hosting, which is, I didn't know it's so expensive and premium. But now that I'm doing what I'm doing, I'm very happy that I'm working with them. Yeah, but that is something to keep in mind. You do want some pretty good hosts.
Yeah, you
when you're
definitely
adding this
want
large public plugin.
definitely want hosts that you know, caching strategies, just automatic backups. You know, you'll pay a little bit more. Like I do most of the stuff on WP Engine. They start out like $25 a month, but you know, I think that's a pretty good deal. Especially start off with all those things you get out of the box. It's like you don't have to worry about whether your site's being backed up or if your site's slow because you know, you don't want to deal with that stuff. You want your managed hosting to deal with that, and not you.
I'll learn a lot more about what hosting actually is with JavaScript, right?
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's I mean, with managed host, the whole thing with hosting is like, unless you really want to be like a DevOps person, you just want someone else to deal with it. Like I don't want to, like, you know, you could get an Amazon account, you know, an AWS account and do your own thing, but do you want to do that? I mean, I don't. And, you know, I'd rather have people that know how to host a WordPress site really well and all the things that go along with it, and pay a little bit more to do that than either do it myself or pay less and have someone do it poorly. So
yeah,
it's, you know.
Yeah, because even in the beginning, when I was figuring things out and I was on my own and I was figuring things out on my own and I was having fun doing that, hosting was still too much for me to figure out on my own.
Yeah, I don't know. I have no interest in, in getting involved in my own hosting, and I have done it before and I regret it.
Self-hosting is a really big can of worms, and I recently jumped away from WP Engine managed hosting to running my own servers at DigitalOcean and Linode, and you know, managed using a service called GridPane, and I'm absolutely 100% in love with it. But it's a huge lift, and you have to learn a lot about how to keep things in line so that you're protected. A lot, you know, the tools put a lot of stuff in place, but it's a pretty big jump. I mean, yeah, I'm saving a ton of money by hosting my own servers and managing them myself, but it's a huge learning curve, and I only recommend it for people who have kind of outgrown the managed hosting space, like you've outgrown Kinsta or WP Engine, and you really need to run your own servers. And here's why: if you're in that space, if that's you, come talk to me. I'm happy to work with you on it and explain how I got to where I'm at. But I don't recommend it for the general person. You have to be running
on you,
dozens or hundreds of websites.
It's also on you. So the thing is that if with the managed hosting, I don't have to worry about whether it's up or if it's being backed up, or if something goes wrong, I can then reach out to the support. And like, because the last thing I want to do is deal with server issues myself. I just don't want to do it. So I'd rather stick.
Yeah, I've rebooted servers from my iPhone driving down the road at 45 miles an hour. It's not. It's not. I don't recommend it unless you really know what you're doing, or you have to go into that route. For a lot of companies, or for a lot of people who have outgrown the space, the managed hosting space, it is a next step solution for you. But if managed hosting works for you, then stick with it.
Yeah, I've definitely. Dad, you don't have to be quiet. You're good. You can cook dinner if you want. Anyway, oh yeah, so I'm actually in Newark currently. I'm in Jersey currently. I'm usually coming in from Philly, but I'm visiting my dad right now. So that's kind of cool. But yeah, if you guys
welcome to North Jersey.
In the North Jersey part, find a place to meet in person around here, that would be really convenient.
Yeah, we are still, I mean, we're like, with everything that's happening right now, I'm even less likely to suggest we meet in person with the Delta variant and everything that's going on right now. But hopefully at some point, a few of the organizers we've been chatting, or at least Montclair, we've been chatting about potential spaces for when things do become safe again. And we don't know if we have our old space still available, but we're considering other spaces as well. But we will keep everybody updated with our progress there and when things feel comfortable in general. It's probably when we'll. I don't think WordPress is actually like they are not encouraging in-person meets yet. They still very much want us to do virtuals. So.
Oh, I was going to say, there's been a lot of talk, at least I've noticed, like ever since I've been in the WordPress community, there's always a lot of talk about hosting. Maybe that would be another good presentation, like hosting for designers and marketers and managers and the non-developers.
Yeah, we've done, I think Cam did a hosting one. Cameron, didn't you do a hosting meetup a few months ago?
Not yet, but I've been talking to you about it.
You've been talking about it. So you've been talking about it, you didn't actually do it yet. Okay.
I really, really need to do it because I've learned a lot in the past year. And it's like, hosting it's either black box, which is like managed hosting. You sort of know what you're getting, but you don't really understand what you're getting. Or hosting is like you're stuck on a server with 300 other websites and you don't really understand, like you're only getting a fraction of the resources of that server. And if you have a CPU intensive site, you really need a custom solution. There's so many different levels of kinds of hosting you can get. And the hosting companies actually intentionally make it not clear what you're getting, especially when it comes down to like number of PHP workers or, it's like, I really recommend that if you need a custom solution, go with a custom solution. And there are tools out there, there are companies out there that will help you get to that. And you're not going to end up spending, I swear, I kid you not, you're not going to spend $15,000 a month like some of these companies that I've talked to. Like you can get by with $100 a month server at DigitalOcean. As long as it's got enough CPU resources available and as long as it's configured properly, you should be good. There's a huge amount of money being wasted on managed hosting. And so if you understand what you're buying when you get managed hosting, that's one thing. But if you don't understand, then you're probably overpaying.
Maybe sometime in the fall you can
really need to do the meetup or the presentation.
Yeah, maybe sometime in the fall we'll get you to do that talk. The next one I definitely want to try to get full site editing in Gutenberg, since that came out in 5.8.
Yeah, just to give you an example, I had 2 servers at managed hosting. Combined, I was spending $1,000 a month at WP Engine. My hosting costs now are $268 a month. So I cut my budget by 75% by running my own servers. I only pay for what I use, as opposed to, paying for WP Engine's executives' third yacht, or their venture capital, because they took a lot of VC money, so they're trying to monetize that. It's kind of a big problem. So there's the whole unicorn space as well with WP Engine and Page and Pantheon. It's a huge conversation, but we can talk about that during a meetup.
Cool. Yeah, that sounds like a good future meetup for us, especially if there's people interested in all their different hosting options and what they would get involved in, if depending upon which one they go with. Does anybody else have any questions for Win on Elementor? Just asking the Q&A. Win, this was a great talk. Really appreciate you giving us this talk tonight.
Thanks.
Yeah. Oh, we got another one.
Yep.
If you do a talk about hosting, because this is not a you win, sorry. If you do a talk about hosting, perhaps include a way to benchmark your website on a host under a certain plan. So, Cam, if you plan on doing that, take that.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, benchmarking, I guess it depends on what you're trying to benchmark. It's like page speed, or like, what are you measuring? Like in the end, what it boils down to is like, what kind of website are you running? Is it a static brochureware site? Can you cache 99% of the content? Or is it an online community discussion forum where everybody is logged in and you've got 30 people every 30 seconds trying to leave comments on something? Like, what kind of website are we talking about? Because benchmarking matters. It's like, what are you doing? Like, WooCommerce sites are immensely CPU intensive. You need huge servers for WooCommerce. So if you're running an e-commerce site, like those guys, Universal Yums here in New Jersey, where they're selling candy from around the world, it's a monthly subscription box. Their WooCommerce site has to be on a massive server, because they're getting getting people adding things and processing carts like every, like probably 1 or 2 a minute. So it really depends on what you mean by benchmarking.
Yeah, it sounds like not only a talk that I would definitely want to attend, but if you want like a co-host, I could offer some input, might give the interpretation from a non-developer stance.